In this video, we're exploring drawing, we're exploring randomness, we're making complicated drawing objects and mucking about with color in the openFrameworks superBasics series. Funky random line. We've got random awesome craziness, which I really, really like. Oh my gosh, one eye. Awesome, beautiful, fantastic. In the previous video, we investigated drawing. We were doing a lot of stuff with color, and we used draw rectangle and draw circle to be able to draw basic objects on screen. In this instance, I'm going to use the OF draw line command to draw me a line on screen. An OF draw line expects to be given an X and Y starting position and an X and Y ending position. So I can give this just numbers, starting at 100 across and 100 down. As my start point, and then an X and Y for my end point. And as with the other objects that we've drawn, it'll take whatever our set draw color was previous to this drawing operation. So if I run this now, we'll see it'll draw a line from 100, 100 down to 400, 400, which is great. And I can draw lines all over the place like this. So if I said I want to draw a second line from 400, 400, which is where our previous line ended, to 500, 500. It'll draw one line and then the other. Maybe I should make that slightly more imaginative. So I'll draw it 400, 400, 200, 300. And now we see we have this line drawn, and that's great. One of the things that I can also do is I can use OF set line width between 0 and 10, so I can set this to 10 wide and draw myself a thicker line. So there we go, thicker lines, that's great. Now, we can draw hundreds and hundreds of these if we like, and I can go back to my helpful loop, which we've used before, and go for int I equals 0. I is less than 100, I think we'll draw 100 lines, and then I plus plus. And then I'm just going to draw a line from OF random, which we've used before, and I'm going to say OF get the width, so anywhere, to OF random, OF get height, so anywhere on the screen width-wise, anywhere on the screen height-wise to start, going to exactly the same. So it's going to pick a random X and a random Y point as the start, and a random X and a random Y as the end point, draw me 100 lines in our bright red color. So in my code, I set my color, and I can set the line width, which I'm doing here. And then I've written this simple loop. I starts at 0, goes to 100, increases one at a time. And each time we go through the loop, I'm using OF draw line, and I'm setting the X and the Y position for our start point, and the X and the Y position by getting the width and getting the height and saying, make me a random number between 0 and the width, or 0 and the height for the start and the end, and do it 100 times. And up in my setup, where I've set the background color, I've also set the frame rate to 15 frames a second to slow it down a little bit. So let's have a look and see what we get drawing 100 random lines from random start point to random end point. We've got random awesome craziness, which I really, really like, and run that out full screen, and it's like, oh my gosh, one eye, awesome, Beautiful, fantastic. What's really nice is these lines fill the screen, and I can change the thickness, and I could randomize the color, I could have them go through different color styles, etc. What I'm going to show you next is an addition to this ability to just draw one line. So if I wanted to draw a line that zigzags all over the place, I'd have to keep saying, oh, get the end point and make that the start point of the previous line. So if I wanted to make complex lines of multiple elements, openFrameworks has an object for that. And what it's called is called polyline. There's a couple of different complex drawing objects for lines. Draw line, just start point, end point. With polyline, we can make multiple elements to the line. And then there's an ofPath object, which can contain multiple paths to make multiple complicated lines for drawing all sorts of things. And what's great is it works in the same way as a vector, that it says, here's one set of points, and here's the next, and here's the next, and here's the next, inside one object. And we can just say, go through and draw it. But also find individual points in that line and manipulate them and change them, and describe how we go from one point to another along a multiple segment line. The simplest way that we can do it is to go, if I go to my header file, I'm going to define a polyline object, which means that every function in our program can access it. So I say ofPolyline, I'm going to call it myLine, and this is a container object that I can put points into, or vectors, these points we're going to call them. And in my draw, I'm going to say, instead of drawing a random line 100 times, I'm going to pause my loop there, and I'm just going to say my line, so recognize the myLine object, and a function or a process that it knows how to do is to draw itself. So I'm going to say draw my line. And every time we update in the update loop, I'm going to make a new random position and add that into my line object. So it will keep adding one point and getting longer and longer. So I can say my line dot add, and then I want to add a vertex, which is what it's calling the points. And you can see I could add a three-dimensional one using a vector 3 object. So it's an X, Y, and Z position and draw in three-dimensional space. Or I'm just going to add in an X and a Y point. And I'm going to say, make the X point, just like we did before, OF random from OF get width. Builders are joining us today, I think. So that's my X point from 0 to the width of the screen. And then I want to add a Y point, exactly the same. OF random. Ooh. OF get height. So every time the update loop gets called, it'll make a new point and put it into my line. And then in the draw loop, it'll just draw my line. So let's have a look what we've got now. And there it is, drawing away, doing me funky random line, and this is all one object, which is great, which means I can go in, manipulate it, I can draw it, I can not draw it, and I can go and add extra things to the colors here. And as I'm opening and closing the window full screen or not, it's drawing me dynamically to the width and the height of the screen that's available. Now there's one thing I want to do here. I'm going to stop this, which I think will look even better, is come to my set color, which I'm doing, and give it a little bit of transparency. So where the lines are going over each other, you'll see the saturation of the color building up. So I'm going to say, set the line to be, I don't know, let's make it 80 alpha. So 0 to 255, kind of halfway ish. And let's run that again and see what we got. Cool. Let's run that out full screen. And there we see drawing away. And where the lines are intersecting, you can see the color is becoming more opaque. And we'll let that run. And this is running at 15 frames a second. I could make it run faster. What I could also do is I could go in, now that I've got that object, and say, go and find me the XY coordinates of point so-and-so in this vector of points in my long line and manipulate them. So that's another part of drawing lines, manipulating color. In the next video, I'm going to be looking at other things that we can do with lines and how we can dynamically draw our own lines and track what we're doing and manipulate these line objects. So hit the subscribe, leave me comments in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next video in the openFrameworks superBasics series.